Okay, I'd like everybody to take their seats, please. I ask you to rise for the salute to the flag. I'd like to call this meeting in order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Present. Here. 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 Okay. Please show that a quorum is present. First order of business will be consideration of minutes. We have a public hearing of September 11th, and you have a regular meeting of September 11th. Your pleasure on the previous minutes? Yes, Mr. Nash.
That we accept and place them on file.
Motion made and second to place them on file. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried. Okay, public session. Is there anyone from the public wishes to address the chair? Mr. Cassett.
Yes, David Cassetti, 3 High Acres Road, Ansonia. I was reading in the newspaper, the Valley Independent Sentinel, about our taxes. 86% collection rate, over $2 million in motor vehicle taxes owed. What are we doing to collect this money? A few months ago, I came in and I asked if you needed any help with anything, and you said you'd get back to me, but I never heard from anybody. I mean, you have the boo, you have the newspaper to put something in the paper, putting the people's names in that are delinquent in their taxes to collect this money. This is our money. And, you know, the Board of Education was screaming that they needed their money, but we didn't have it for them. What are you doing to collect this?
I'll answer that. I can't answer on the collection rate because I'm not sure exactly what it is. But we were told by Ms. Bostic before she left that our real estate, I'm pretty sure collection rates were someplace in the 90s that she was talking about. When you listen or read that about automobile collections being owed over $2 million, that is going back 15 years. That is, most of it is uncollectible. For instance, if you have a vehicle and you move to California, but you never turn the marker plates in, that marker plate is still amassing taxes. So most of this are written off, we were told, after 5 years. When we had our new tax collector meet with the finance committee, most of those are uncollectible. They go to what they call a suspense list. We haven't had a suspense list prepared in the last couple of years. So Mr. Gorzolini went back 15 years and found every single tax one that was owed. We would have to find out from him when he thinks the actual amount to be collected on that is.
Yeah.
Certainly not $2 million.
Yeah, you don't think it's $2 million?
He already told us it's not $2 million. He told us that.
It's just unbelievable to see that, because I remember when I served on the Board of Aldermen years back, we had a 98% collection rating, and to see 86, wondering what's going on, that you're not collecting this money.
We were told by our former tax collector, came to a meeting and explained to us as the finance committee that with the downturn in economics, if you look at the amount that's owed on real estate taxes, really jumped about 2000, I think it is 8, and then it jumped again in 2009. I think this year it's doubled from 2000.
All right.
So,
All right.
yeah, it's
Okay.
all explained, but I'm sure if you have questions, we can get the answers to them. But I know that article was misleading. So
Okay.
I can say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. President, point out, I think you, Mr. President, hit the nail on the head. Our tax collector did not submit what they call a put-on list since 2010. And so essentially, the DMV had no way to know who was delinquent on the motor vehicles since 2010. And of course, there does not seem to be any acceptable explanation as to why that wasn't done. It just wasn't done.
We can tell you the list was generated, but it was not transmitted to the motor vehicles. The work was done, list was generated. What it is now is, if that list was generated and sent, which was generated and sent in 2010, people that owed taxes would not be registering their cars in 2012.
Right.
What we have is at least we know it's been transmitted now. This is one of the changes that's been done. So people next year will not be registering their cars if they owe taxes.
All right.
From this point forward, the list is there.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Which, yes, Mr. Nolan.
Good evening, my name is John Olin from Ansonia. I have been here for about 4 years, taking guy a breather.
Address, John.
I have been here for about 4 years, taking guy a breather, as you probably know. The reason why I'm here today is because, as we're all aware of, we've been having a lot of extreme weather, not only here in the Northeast, but around the world. And you're probably all wondering what's causing all that. Well, the mayor knows what's causing this. I gave him a pamphlet back about 4 years ago that he handed out to Valley Council of Mayors at a meeting back then. And it described about the Earth's magnetic field. And if it began to move, what could happen? The magnetic field had begun to move, according to NASA, and also to some Danish geologists as well. They've been following this. And when that field begins to move, it upsets the Earth's atmosphere and causes extreme weather. This was found out by a Danish study by the, if I can pronounce this, Aarhus University in Denmark. A Danish astrophysicist by the name of Henrik Svensmark had made the claim. And this was published in several newspapers through Europe and also some here in the United States. Now, we've had, 3 tornadoes in Connecticut in the last 12 months, maybe more than that. And my question is there any alarm system in place? Is there any alarm system in place to warn people of a tornado? Now, tornado warnings are only given if a tornado is seen within 50 miles of the warned area. Before then, there's a watch out. If the atmosphere is ripe enough for one to develop, you get a watch. And if a tornado is spotted aloft or on the ground within 50 miles of the warned area, you'll know. But you don't have much time to run for cover if it's coming at you. They're very unpredictable. You don't know where they're going. You could be told it's moving towards Derby or Seymour or whatever, but it doesn't mean it's going to make it there. Okay? So, do you know of any alarm system in place here in the valley, anywhere? Different than the regular alarm system that goes off for fires, something unique. So people would know about it and they can take cover if necessary.
Ansonia does not have an alarm system for fires anymore. We do have a system in place that has been deactivated.
Can you talk a little louder, please? I hear that.
It is deactivated. It is not active at this time, our alarm system. We have radio communication. We all have pagers, all the active firemen.
Well, that won't do any good.
Well, you asked me the question. I'm answering the question.
Oh, okay.
We also do have, is it a reverse 911 system, whatever we call it, that we can put messages out to everybody's cell phones, telephones, and all. I forget how many we can do a minute, 10,000 a minute, or whatever it is. The chief has more information on that. So everybody in Ansonia has been recommended that they go on our website. I know I went on our website. I put my home telephone number in it, my wife's cell phone, my cell phone. So God forbid anything is coming in Ansonia, we'll all get warned that way.
Okay, that's all well and good, but if the towers are knocked down, if the satellites are knocked down from high winds, whether it be straight line winds or tornado winds, all of those signals aren't gonna be worth a dime, because they're not gonna be out there.
Well, either
We
we'll
have to
have
have
an alarm system that's
visible-
by wires and poles. It wouldn't
Well,
work.
we have to have the visible observation. Now, I'm qualified meteorologist. I was one in the Navy, okay? The Maryville, and some of you guys know that as well. And I know what to look for. I've been warning my wife up in Waterbury at the shelter. She works for Safe Haven up in Waterbury. She's the boss up there. And whenever we have a warning, or not by the Weather Bureau, when I check the NOAA sites occasionally, when I look at the cloud cover, I can tell what clouds are going to be forming better weather and what aren't. And I'll call her up and say, all right, Lois, take shelter. You know the drill. I should do that. Now, we ought to have something like that in all the schools here in the valley. People should be notified or be educated on what to look for, because cell phones aren't going to work if the towers are knocked down.
Okay, John, I'm gonna cut you off at this point, only because of the reason that we do have a time limit for people there. Secondly, this is not the board to be addressing on that.
Who do I address?
We do have an an emergency preparedness committee. Chief Hale is the chairperson of it. It meets, I think, once a month. You can contact him and find out when the meetings are. We do have an emergency preparedness officer for the city of Ansonia. That's where you should be addressing that. And they can answer all of your questions. But this is not the board that can answer that. And we can't put a system in place. They can put a system.
Well, you guys all know about it now.
Absolutely.
You all know about it.
We thank you for the information, but it's not the place to be.
Yeah, but you know about it. You can pass it on for me, because look, I have a bad leg, all right? I don't get out that much. I'm feeling pretty good today, so I came out to this meeting.
I'm sure you can even email them. They can let you know where to contact them. And they do meet, and this is specific things that they do go over. It's the information they should have, not our board.
Okay,
But thank you.
all right, well, you guys have a good evening.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right.
Anyone else wish to address the board? Yes.
Michael Carpinello, 20 Fairview Street, Ansonia. I've been a vendor here 17 years. And just today, or this month actually, we got the vendor sign up at the Nature Center, where the vendors can park and everything. Spoke with Donna Lingman today, and she says I can come up to the events that go on as long as I shut my generator down. I pollute the air and this and that. I can't shut it down. That's my business. We have two self-serve machines on there. You know, I'm licensed by the state, by the city, by you guys. I have all my insurance. And that's just, I'm asking for some help between me and her. I went to the Recreation Board, Police Commission. I can't get any help. And like I said, I just spoke to her today. She said, there's something going on the 20th, hay rides and all that stuff. I'm more than welcome to come if I shut my truck off. Can't shut the truck off. It's not the truck that's running, it's the generator. Then she told me there was a state law saying that you can't leave a generator running for more than an hour or something like that. I suddenly, you know, what about the buses and the trucks and the dump trucks and all the other, you know, I don't know where else to turn to. You guys gave me the extra permit to go up there, the license agreement, and I'm asking for some help and see if I could alleviate the problem. You know, she went to the Recreation Board and, Mike's creating altercations, this and that. Yeah, it's because they have nowhere to park. I got a $35 parking ticket up there in September. I was doing business, the cops came up, didn't even say anything, just license registration, boom, gave me a $35 ticket. And I'm like, you know, I don't know where else to go. This is like a last resort or something. She goes, when I go up there and I'm running the generator, she calls cops. And I tell her, I said, go ahead and call, I'm gonna call the cops, or one of the rangers. You know, one of them guys called me he said, what are you mentally retarded? Something like that. One day over there, and But I guess they got the new, are these in the, Attorney Blake, are these enforceable right here, these new
Excuse
laws?
me, if you want to address
Oh,
Attorney
can I-
Blake, ask me and
Can I ask Attorney Blake? Or can I ask
Blake,
you?
do you wish to answer a question?
There's a proposal on there with respect to the vendor that has gone to the Recreation Commission. I do not know if it was approved or not.
Yeah, the 24-hour thing,
No, it's about parking, I think. Oh, yeah, the 24-hour thing, yes,
you
but.
gotta get
yes.
24 hours and you're gonna have
Yes.
a party or something, yeah, that's fine, that's a good deal. But it's not that, it's the, I don't know what else to do.
I don't know, I think we should take a look at this now, make a decision tonight. I know there were at least 3 ice cream trucks at our Harvest Festival. I was leaning against one of them. It wasn't running and there was no generator running. I don't know what they do.
Yeah, that's
Tom
because,
Lingren is in charge of the nature center.
right,
I'll tell you that.
can I answer that question?
Yes.
There were 2 ice cream trucks there, Jim's and Spirit of 76, and they serve prepackaged ice cream. They don't get a license from the state, they just get the local health department. I'm Mr. Softy, I get soft serve ice cream, milkshakes, sundaes, banana boats. I run the generator to run the machine. I'm licensed by the state of Connecticut and the health, in the North Valley and the city, and I'm, that's what they have to do.
Gentlemen, I would like to take this up under new business later.
I'll be more than happy to take this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could say, as we discussed at previous board meetings, unlike a lot of other vendors that come into the city to do business, this particular vendor has gone through all the loops, has jumped through all the hoops to be registered with us, to let us know that he's here, to be under our rules and regulations. He should get the full extent of the licenses that he has. So obviously, it's not something that's maybe black and white to us right now, but this deserves to be looked into. He's getting the benefit of everything he's going for in the city.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the board? Yes.
Hi, my name is Eugene Driscoll. I'm from the Valley Independent Sentinel, 158 Main Street. You had pointed out that one of our articles was misleading, but I just went and checked it, and actually everything you said is accurately reflected in the article. So it must have been the public's interpretation of that was misleading.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Buzan.
How you doing? My name is Edward Mujanti, 121 Castle Lane, Ansonia. I'd like to thank Mike Schreiber for the project that he did for me up on 3 Castle Lane. We know it's not finished, that with the curbing and the bank that washed out, right? And now I have a suggestion on parking meters. I think they should bring up parking meters. I came in here to pay tax, and I went out, and I had a parking ticket saying that I was too close to the curb, and I was only in here maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes the most. Because they used to have parking meters. All they have to do is get a letter to the state, asking the state about getting parking meters, because that's a state road. And that's all they have to do, because they had them parking meters.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to address the board? Yes, young lady.
Natalie Bisucci, 57 Rockwood Avenue, Ansonia. I just was wondering if the steps near the library, the park where the old Ansonia High School used to be, I've noticed that they're really becoming like overgrown with trees and starting to fall apart. And the wall, actually the steps in the wall, and this is kind of minor, but I'm just wondering if it could be put on a list of things to do in the town to like spray the trees and weeds so it doesn't ruin the wall and the steps. I think that's a very nice thing that we still have
We will bring your suggestion to Mr. Schreiber.
Okay, thank you.
We're aware of it. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Bladnicki.
Good evening, Ken Plavnicki, 15 Mountain View. I'd just like to put out a special thanks to Judy DeCalari and Mary Gibson for running an excellent day on Saturday. They did a great job doing the Harvest Festival, and
hopefully we'll be back again next year.
I'd like to also add to that and say that Public Works did an amazing job of cleaning up that street in record time, and at the same time getting all the decorations and everything out, so I think it looked very well. Anyone else? Hearing none, yes, Mr. Fairley.
Good evening, President Sharkey, honorable members of the Board of Aldermen. For the record, my name is Bartholomew Flaherty. I reside at 28 Pinecrest Avenue in Ansonia, very proudly. And if you'll bear with me, I pulled my glasses out of my pocket and they broke. So I'm without benefit of glasses. I think I'll be able to survive. Thank you. I'm here to just talk on the Ansonia tax incentive program. And I'd just like to point out that we have a plan of economic development that's being generated as we speak. The first public hearing is tomorrow night, and I hope everyone attends, because it'd be very important. Thursday night. And what time? 7. 7, okay. Correct, thank you. Thursday night at 7, so it'll be very important for everyone to try to get there and have public input. Because that's the only way you're going to have a viable plan, is to get public input. Everybody comes in with as much, everybody in the audience, everybody's boards, everyone should have input into that plan. Then we'll have a real viable plan. But get back to the reason I'm here, I think this is premature, and I would suggest that, and I'm not against it, by the way, but I just think it's premature to pass this resolution prior to having a complete plan of economic development, because it's very possibly maybe tweaked, changed. You might want to look at a specific business to try to incentivize that type of business to come into the community. Or they might just say this is great and go with it 100%, but we're spending $25,000 to have experts come in, and I would just suggest that perhaps Alderman Marini, which I talked to him before the meeting, would withdraw this or maybe table it until after that plan is complete, so that you have a much better idea of how you want to tax incentivize. And there's a few things in this, words like case-by-case basis. I see it said in the court, you have to have a little more specificity. Because when you start going case-by-case, you say, okay, this, but not this, but you usually end up in court. By and large, it's a good program. I'm not sure if residential, I see residents mentioned, so I don't know if I put new siding on a new roof and a 2-car garage, you're going to give me a break. I don't know if that's included, but it certainly has merit, but I think just the timing is a little premature. And I would suggest that you should wait until after the plan is completed to see what they suggest, what ways they suggest to incentivize business coming into Ansonia. It may be this format, this venue, or it could be something. They might enumerate a number of different ways to do it, so you might have a choice, this specifically or maybe something else. It has merit, so I'm not here to decry the passage of it. I'm just saying that I would suggest that the timing of it is somewhat premature. So I thank you for letting me put my 2 cents in. Also, the harvest, the festival that we had was excellent. And I reiterate what you said, Mr. President, that Public Works did a tremendous job in the cleanup, because that's the tough part, getting the guys in and getting it cleaned up. Lastly, while I'm standing there, getting a lot of mileage out of my nickel, the sidewalk above the Norwoods Club, the outside opposite side of the street, from B&J Electric, almost up to that first house that put in that nice stone wall and everything. The trees are really, really hanging low, and something has to be corrected. I went up to Thursday night after the Ansonia Derby football game, and a number of young people were coming down the sidewalk, going out into the street when the guardrail begins, going out into the street and walking down until they're past that, all that hanging branches and things, and then got back on the sidewalk. And it was dark and hard to see, and I said, geez, you know, that's kind of a dangerous thing. Then I was up there on a Sunday morning, and two gentlemen were walking down the sidewalk out into the street, same thing. So I just would suggest that maybe Public Works could get up and trim those trees.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Anyone else? Yes. Mr. Carroll?
Hi, Randolph Carroll, 44th Street, chairman of the fiduciary that's doing the fountain at the library. 3 months ago, I bought all the equipment for the fountain, the pump, the retention pond, everything. It cost over $800. I went up to the library, and the equipment that I bought, it was not installed. The Public Works, when I called Public Works, and they called me back and said they bought all new equipment. My fiduciary is now paid out that money because it's non-returnable. I've worked very hard on this project. Now I'm receiving bills from the company that's installing it, $1,680 for an ice maker kit. The fountain doesn't have an ice maker. $800 for electricity to hook up the fountain, but $300 of it is to repair a light that was already in the library. I just want to go on record that the Friends of the Ansonia Historical Commission are not going to pay those bills. I will pay the $28.24 for a coupler, but I'm not paying $1,680 for an ice machine and over $800 to repair a light.
Have you brought this information to Mr. Schreiber?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And how was it resolved?
I went in my box this evening when I came here, and here's a bill for $1,680 for an ice maker kit. I'll even show it to you. It says ice maker kit.
Okay. I'd like to have Mr. Schreiber respond to that. Mr. Schreiber is sitting here in the audience, shaking his head that no, he didn't know anything about this. So
I can show him the bill.
Okay, I understand that, but I asked if you had met with him and tried to work it out prior to.
I brought
Mr.
Schreiber up about the not being able to return the retention pond and all the equipment that I bought for the fountain. And we came up for a solution that maybe that the next project that the Friends will do is with the equipment that I've spent, which is non-returnable, to restore the fountain that's right in this park. Get that going with all the equipment that I bought. But if I'm going to keep on getting bills for, I'll after the meeting, or if Mr. Schreiber wants to see these now, I'll show them to him. But one of the problems is that when I first started getting bids on this project, I had Emmett O'Brien was going to do it all pro bono. And I had all the kids up there, they were all gung-ho, and the mayor said because of liability, he wanted to hire a contractor to do it, and that Public Works would be footing these bills. So,
Okay, before you go any further, let me go on record as stating, Emmett O'Brien does nothing pro bono. Emmett O'Brien is not allowed to do any work pro bono. In fact, we had contacted them about the possibility of installing our pavilion at the Nature Center. They have to charge us for labor. They now have to do it. That is state statutes passed by the legislature. So even in fact, we have the kit here. If we have them install it, we have to pay for it. We have Public Works install it, we don't pay for it.
well, when he came with their...
I just want to record saying that.
That's fine. But when they came to the library, I met them at the library with their school bus, and it was packed with kids. the gentleman that's in charge of plumbing said it's a perfect opportunity for these kids to learn how to plumb, and they would do it pro bono. So,
Okay.
but I will show these bills to Mr. Schreiber.
If you would, please, and if you have no satisfaction with them, feel free to come back here, but I would like you to work it out with them,
Okay.
rather than this board trying to direct them to do something.
Okay, so I wish that, they're gonna have the fountain working in the winter or the night.
I don't know. I don't.
Since it's not a timer to go off, I think that's kind of
Okay. Very good. Anyone else?
You want to see these?
Seeing none, hearing none, public session closed. Public official session. Our mayor is home sick tonight. Do we have anyone responding for the mayor, or if not, we'll cover that. Corporation Counsel, please.
I have nothing except on unfinished business regarding Mr. Michael Lehman. Mr. Souza cannot make it today, so we request it be tabled till next month. Just a table, request to table the unfinished business regarding Mr. Michael Lehman. Mr. Souza cannot make it tonight. He'll be here next month.
Under unfinished business?
Yes.
Yes, that was requested, continue tabling that.
Thank you.
Ms. Kolakowski, anything?
Yeah, my report in front of you, there are transitions going on in the city. We've put out employment opportunities. We're going through the process. Hopefully we'll have a fully staffed city hall as soon as possible. Any questions? Yes, John.
Which, in particular, which positions are open?
Tax collector's office has been posted. That's going out. There's a part-time position in the tax collector's office that went out. We're in the process of starting interviews for that. There's a ranger position at the nature center that Mrs. Lindgren is, Donna Lindgren's going to do interviews for that one. So that's where we are internally right now.
Any other questions? Yes.
I was gonna ask the mayor or Mike, about Main Street, paving of Main Street, is that in the plans for this year or
Let's
next
get
year?
through the public officials here, and then we'll talk it. I'm pretty sure anything that the water company dug up, the water company is gonna be paid. You know,
Probably not this year though, right?
Yeah.
We will, we'll have time to
They'll be
repave
permanent
before.
patch, yeah. Will be done, and then next year, they're gonna mill and pave in the spring, the entire street. But they'll be permanently patched before.
Thank you.
Chief Hale?
Yes, thank you. We're currently still in the hiring process. We still have one position to fill. We have currently 3 officers in the police academy. One is graduating at the end of this month, 2 the end of December, just before Christmas. So we continue that process. We have 2 requests from me regarding the police department vehicles tonight. And again, the Harvest Fest from our perspective was a success. We had no issues, a large crowd. It was good to see that. The officers reported no problems at all.
Right, my record is saying that the detective's vehicle will probably be turned down tonight, because I was supposed to buy that vehicle and said he sold it to you, so we're probably going to. All in jest, people. Okay. Public official session closed, committee reports. Yes.
Finance committee?
First,
or you want me to go last?
Motion to pay bills, maybe.
Yeah, that's, you want me to go first or you want me to go last? Motion to pay all bills if I'm correct, first? Second.
Motion made and seconded to pay all bills if found correct. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Any other committee reports?
I'm going to give a brief description on the finance committee meeting that we had a couple weeks ago. The first thing was some recommendations that came out of that meeting from the acting tax collector, Mr. Gorzolini. Some of the recommendations were as follows. No one receives a motor vehicle clearance unless all tax bills and penalty vehicles in their name and owned jointly are paid in full. No exceptions on that.
Motor vehicle releases should be kept under lock and key and after hours when no one is in the office. As President Sharkey spoke about earlier, reporting put-ons to the Department of Motor Vehicles should be done after every collection is complete. Our put-on last time was 2010, as he had stated earlier. It was set to go out, but was never sent to the DMV, which was not done by us. Motor vehicle delinquent notices should be sent out quarterly. Currently, no delinquent notices are sent out for motor vehicles, and tax office has been relying solely on DMV to flag and hold registrations for delinquent accounts. The City of Ansonia should commence using the Outline Department of Vehicle Information System. The cost is approximately $400 per year, which I believe we do have at this point. We also spoke about delivering the checks that the tax office collects on a daily basis, and I believe that is also being done at this point. I know there was some issues with people's checks being hung up down there for quite some time. We also spoke about consider wage garnishments for delinquent taxpayers where place of work can be determined. Personal property taxes we spoke about. In general, the tax office must be a little more aggressive on collecting personal property taxes. Copies of all checks received from personal property accounts should be kept on file. Consideration should be given to accelerating the installment schedule for collection of personal property taxes, either once per year in July or once per year for all accounts less than. Currently, we have 2 delinquent notices that are sent out each year. He also spoke about, in general, that the tax office down there is, in his opinion, short-staffed. They currently have 1 full-timer, a part-timer, and a tax collector. So budget time is coming up. We're going to have to obviously address that at the Finance Committee. When we do select somebody to become the tax collector, we're going to have to go through that with them. Just from other side notes that we had, President Sharkey had stated that it would benefit us to have some standard operating guidelines within the tax office, which is something that we as the Finance Committee can sit down and talk to whoever we select as the tax collector. Because they're going to obviously have their own ideas too. We're not going to just, have all the ideas. They're going to come in with some good ideas, I'm sure, also. That is another important. I think the meeting went well. There was a lot of good things that came out of it. And the current acting tax collector that we have at the moment is doing an outstanding job, and he's giving us a lot of information.
There was one other thing that Mr. Gorslani mentioned that he had done. When the monies are transmitted to the bank and the bank rectifies on their end, that slip now comes back to our finance department. That does not go back to the tax department as it had in the past. So in other words, we had the tax office sending stuff to the bank with a deposit slip, and when it was rectified, the slip went back to them. That was not good accounting procedures, and he's corrected that also. Another safeguard for the city of Ansonia did mention to us. And there was a report that was out there. I saw Alderman Tripp looking for his. I know there was one. If you didn't get one, I can get one for you.
I would appreciate that, Mr.
Okay.
President. Thank you.
I had one myself, and I didn't bring it.
I just have something to segue with what to Alderman Adamowski was saying, if I have.
Yes.
I've done it with your time. Mr. President, Mr. Daly Cassetti asked a question about our collection rate. And I think this adds information to the answer that he was looking for, in that as Alderman Adamowski, I'm tripping over all these A's, pointed out, the policies and procedures that our new acting tax collector wants to implement would help us to bring up our tax collection rate. And all those things that Alderman Adamowski just read off will help us to achieve that end. So just to add to the answer given to Mr. Cassetti, that's all I have to say.
Along that line, when we met with our tax collector in the finance meetings that we had, finance committee meetings, we talked to her about what was called a suspense list. And she told us that normally tax collectors have on even, I'm almost positive with real estate, they had a 5-year limit or some limit. Please let me go back and figure out which one it was. And then they put it on a suspense list. It must have been more than 5 years, maybe 10 years. She kept things off the suspense list, which meant that her collection rate was down, but she still had a chance sometime in the future to maybe get that. Other tax collectors put people on a suspense list, so it makes their numbers look better, makes their batting average look better, but it collects some less money. And she did explain that to us. Mr. Gorzalini naturally would imply the modern techniques that he has used in a much larger thing. And so I really hope that would increase our tax collection rate and also get the money. That's what we're here for, is to get the money and not to make our batting average look good. So hopefully that will work. Yeah.
And I could add one more thing to that to wrap that up. When we had that meeting back in, I believe that was January or February, the Finance Committee sat in on that same meeting, and we were misled. We were actually, took that up on the Finance Committee ourselves to try to bring that number down. That was the whole reason for that meeting. And at that point, I think we were really misled on what the actual problem was, because when we left that meeting, it was she needed the $400 program from the DMV, and the collection rate would go down. And as we dove into this, it's not necessarily the case.
We asked if any more tools were needed to help collect the money, and we were told they had enough of tools, programs, this, and they were all being utilized fully. Obviously, we found out that they were not being utilized, so, you know, that's water over the dam, but we will utilize them all now. Yes, Alderman Marie.
Mr. President, one thing that I believe I brought up at the end of that meeting, to add on to what happened at our last finance meeting, was the investigations went forward for the 5 individuals who were employees of the city that were involved in the whole tax clearance problem that we had. And my recommendation was to follow up in terms of getting the transcripts from those disciplinary hearings, so that this board could take a look at those transcripts within the confines of an executive session, because obviously disciplinary proceedings relative to employees is not completely private, public information. I'm not sure if there's been any follow-up, but I do think it's important for us to take a look at those transcripts to see what the stories of our employees were in terms of how they came to possess them, whether or not they knew it was proper or not, and maybe Kevin could give us some guidance on that.
I know you asked the mayor that night.
Yes.
The mayor said he would address it with you.
Yes, and I haven't heard
I don't know, so.
We can address it tonight with Mr. Teodosio. He's here, we can address what transpired and the outcome of those fact findings.
When we do that later in the meeting, in fact, we might want to do it under executive
I
session.
think we would need to do it under executive session, so that's absolutely
I agree, so let's possibly take that up later in the meeting, executive session. Okay. Other committees? Yes.
I'd just like to add that Stan was very forthcoming with a lot of information that none of us here knew. And he did say recovery, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, motor vehicle, we should see quite a bit of recovery within 2 years. And he thought the property taxes was going to be 3 to 5 years that we would have, what did you say, 98%, I think we probably would have. So just for the taxpayers to know that this is a big deal and it's going to help the city a lot.
Yes, it's more or less, the line in the sand was drawn as soon as this put-on list was sent to motor vehicles. But that means some people that might have registered their cars last year would have another year to go before they registered them again. Their delinquent notices are already down there. And also, one of the things he did mention is that we did not send out any delinquent notices ourselves. We relied totally on motor vehicles, and in the future, they're talking about quarterly, reminding people and sending it back out. He did mention the other day to me that someone came in and paid quite a large bill and said he was unaware. He does not live in Ansonia, was unaware that the taxes were still owed here. So maybe we will recoup some of these. Yeah,
Make a motion to accept the report.
motion to accept that finance and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Any other committee reports? We don't have an arms report tonight. Yes?
Economic development, Mr. President. First, in terms of the tax incentive program, that's on the table as a resolution tonight, so I'll wait till then, till we get into the substance of it. Although I will say, in response to Chairman Flaherty's remarks, I do agree, action is not needed on that plan tonight. I disagree to some extent in terms of that it needs to wait until an entire plan is put together, but certainly it does not need to be acted on tonight, and I would actually advise the board that after we talk about it a little bit, that it be forwarded to the Finance Committee for further, more specific review by this board. Beyond that, the Economic Development Commission is most excited about the ongoing consultant process. A consultant visited the Economic Development Commission earlier last month, in which we got a first opportunity to start to talk to our city officials about the kind of economic development that we want to see in town, the state of economic development presently, what they thought works, what they thought doesn't work, and the whole idea is for him to continue that dialogue with all of the other boards and commissions, and to take that dialogue directly to the public. And the first public forum is going to be, again, Thursday, 7 o'clock at City Hall. And I think it's very important for us to attend as many of those public sessions as possible, and for us to contribute when our commissions come up for that dialogue with the consultant. The more input he gets, the more accurate his assessment of economic development in Ansonia will be, and the more productive he can be when he does put together the plan. And to sort of remind everyone what this is, it's not another study that he's putting together for the city. We've certainly had enough of those. It's essentially an action plan, basically saying, these are good ideas, these are where we want to be, but how do we get there? How do we actually get from point A to point B? How do we need to organize? What do we need to do? And the second element of all this, phase B, is really a marketing strategy. It's how do we brand ourselves? What should we be branding ourselves at in order to entice the opportunities that we want? How do we go forward in terms of imaging and PR? So far from this being a study, it really is an action plan and a marketing plan, but he does need that vital information from all of us, from our residents, and from our businesses to make it work. This isn't any one person's plan, any one commission's plan. This is the city's plan, and for that to be valid, we all have to be involved. And finally, an ongoing project is the loan program that the commission is putting together. We have a draft of it that we started to circulate. We're trying to tighten it up and make it as good as it can be before we present it to the board. But in a nutshell, we're looking at a micro loan program, which will be loan amounts up to $2,000 with a low interest rate. Those loans will be given out to businesses for the specific purpose of fixing their facades, of rehabilitating their storefronts. And we're looking for improvements that will be permanent in nature. We're not looking for someone to buy a sign that they can take with them a couple months from now. We're looking for things that will stay with the business, whether it be on Main Street, on Wakely Avenue, or elsewhere. And it's all part of trying to do what we can to help business owners put together more presentable displays to attract customers. That's it right now. Obviously, the incentive plan is a big topic, but I'll wait until a later resolution comes up.
Motion on that report? Motion to accept and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried. Any other reports? Yes.
Mr. President, I don't know if this would be the proper place for question to Public Works or our superintendent. Mr. Schreiber, I just wanted to, one particular project on Goldenrod Avenue. I have several residents at the end of Goldenrod Avenue who've been very excited about getting their curbing done. And they see the markings and they get all excited. And then a couple months later they call me and they say, it's not done yet. I just want to see if I can get something to tell them. They're especially worried that it's going to pass the season and they're not going to get it done by this year.
It will be done.
Great. Thanks.
May I address
Yes.
Mr. Schreiber also? On what Bart said about Franklin Street, that's been 5 or 6 months now, I had somebody tell me about that, but she said it hasn't been done yet, but what she also said was the fencing on the other side is rotted, so it's kind of dangerous there, and I just saw her a couple of days ago. She said that other side from the guardrail is also.
That is going to pose a problem. we're looking into whose property that is now. They used to be American Brass property. They
Right.
since sold some of it off to the UI, and then I guess some other people have a piece of it. But yeah, there was some rotting going on with that wood, and
That's what she says. She says it's very dangerous around that. And she doesn't have a car, so she has to use that. And as Bart said, they have to walk in the street. And when it snows, it's even worse. They have to do it. Yeah, I have a question for you on your report, which I think is great. I hope you do it every month. We've been talking, you and I have been talking about the garbage pickup. And you had said they were gonna send out a recycling thing, but it never got out, I guess. I have a question for you where it says transfer station.
Yeah.
It says recycled, so many tons of scrap metal and so many tons of corrugated cardboard. Is that what goes to recycling, or did you people do that? Because if it's supposed to go to recycling, we're supposed to be getting a percentage for the city.
correct. The scrap metal is brought to a scrap metal dealer, which we go out to bid for every year. And that they send a check which goes to finance and just goes to the general fund.
All right, the cardboard too, is
And
that, because when I
cardboard
do
also.
cardboard, I usually leave the small boxes out there for them, and they've been throwing it in the garbage truck, so I don't leave it out real early. I bring it out later, so it'll go with the recycling, because that goes to Danbury. I think you told me Danbury, we get a percentage,
It used to be Danbury, now they have a facility in Shelton that they bring it
but we
to.
still get a percentage,
Yes, we
and
do.
there's still, the bins are available, Public Works for
Public
free.
Works at no charge, right?
I'd like to see more people get the bins and recycle. They're not doing that much on Jackson, and I really would like to see if you go around town, we can use the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Municipal reports. Pleasure. All of us who were attached to your minutes. Maybe a motion to accept them, place them on file. Mrs. Brady, Mr. Knapp. Thank you. Tax collector report, request for refunds. You have a refund report in front of you, $3,244.18. Mr. Knapp.
Make a motion to pay the tax refund, if found to be correct.
Second. Mr. Tripp. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. One claim. Okay. Pleasure on the claim.
Make a motion, we turn it over to Corporation Counsel.
Okay. We are named as an additional defendant there. It's actually a claim against Anthem Life Insurance. And we're named because we have the policy. Limits what it is. Okay. Motion to turn it over for counsel. And second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Communications, we have 4 in front of us. We have no late communications done. Pleasure on communications.
Make a motion, we accept all communications, place them on file, take them up one at a time.
Yes, Mr. Tripp. Second. Motion made and seconded, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried. First communication is a letter from Ansonia Fire Commission. I won't read the whole thing through. We have 2 of them tonight. We had another one last month. We have several volunteers that are offering to be on our fire police program. This is another one. We have Joseph Cassini at the September 26, 2012 meeting. Ansonia Fire Commission, Joseph Cassini was unanimously approved by Ansonia Fire Commission to be a member of the Ansonia Fire Police. Okay, your pleasure on that. Yes.
Make a motion to accept Joe Cassini, fire police.
Second.
Motion to appoint him. Okay, motion to accept the which we already did, the communication, to appoint Joseph Cassini as a member of the Ansonia Fire Police, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. You have the identical letter. We have the appointment of Jack Mundry. Jack is a member of the Hilltop Hose. Also, at the September 26, 2012 meeting, Jack Mundry was unanimously approved by the Ansonia Fire Commission to be a member of the Ansonia Fire Police.
Make a motion, safe procedure to accept.
We have a motion, Mr. Adamowski, seconded by Mr. Janetti. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Communication number 3 is a letter from Chief Hale. Chief Hale, they have done some inspections of the new motor vehicles that Ford is offering. They would like to purchase 2 of them. Ford no longer makes the Ford Crown Victoria Interceptor model for police. They now have a utility vehicle. He would like to purchase 2 of these at a price of $41,736 each. He has the money in his budget. This is off the state bid, so we do not have to waive bids or do anything with it. He just wants permission to purchase the 2 vehicles out of his budget.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the chief of police to purchase these vehicles.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Oh, and part of your letter also said the reason the price was down to that, well, they are going to trade in the 4 vehicles that are listed in this, and the trade-in price of the vehicles will be deducted. That's why they're total $83,000.
You should amend that motion to include, to allow the trade-in.
Made a motion.
I amend my motion to include the trade.
Okay, and Mrs. Reed, amend your second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Communication number 4 that I mentioned just before, they were able to locate a vehicle. I don't want to read off the type and what it is and everything. It may someday be used in undercover work. Okay, it is for their detective bureau. They found this vehicle. It has been inspected by the mechanic for the police department, thought to be of value to the city of Ansonia. This will also come out of their budget. They do have the money left. Yes.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the chief of police to purchase this additional vehicle.
I'll second.
Motion made and Mr. Knapp second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried. That's it on communications. We have 1 resignation, Ralphine Sitters Ford. Resignation from the Ansonia Economic Development Commission. Regretfully, I'm submitting my resignation. Ansonia Economic Development Commission effective immediately. It's been a pleasure working with you and serving the city of Ansonia. Thank you for appointing me, Ralphine Sitters Ford. It's a pleasure running the resignation.
That we accept the resignation and send her a thank you for your service.
Okay. Mr. Brady seconds. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. We have 2 lists of appointments. We have a list of appointments dated September 28th. The second list is October 4th. I'd like to do the September 28th first. I'd like to ask your indulgence. We have 9 members going on the Charter Revision Commission. Would someone like to move that we let them all on 1 ballot? Yes.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that, which list do you want to do first?
This is the September 28th Charter
I'd like
Revision.
to make a motion that we vote on all the individuals on the September 28th list, Charter Revision Commission, and Charter Revision.
The motion is to accept them.
Vote on them all at once.
To accept them.
To accept them all at once.
Thank you. And we have a second, Mrs. Reagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that was his motion to do it. We're accepting that. You understand that? Okay. Motion was made, accepted. Thank you. We have 1 dated October 4th. That one has 1 member of the Housing Authority, 1 member of Economic Development, and the rest are all members of the Ward Boundary Committee. That has to be by our charter, it has to be enacted. Do you wish to take the same? Do you wish to? Yes.
Do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we take up the Ward Boundary Commission at one time and set them off.
Okay, let's take up the Ward Boundary Commission all at once. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we have a motion to accept the Ward Boundary Committee. All we did was make a motion to bring them up. You need to include in your motion to accept them. Yes? We have a motion to accept all the people in the block on the thing. And we have a second. All in favor of accepting all the names for the Ward Boundary Commission? Any opposed? Okay. We have the Ansonia Housing Authority, one person. Would you read it in, please?
Ansonia Housing Authority, Nancy Marie, 11 Holly Drive, Ansonia, Connecticut. Vacancy term to expire 10/31/15.
Yes.
I make a motion to accept.
To appoint.
Ms. Marie, housing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
You have a second? Okay. Can we do all in favor? You want to do all in favor? Is your motion to do all in favor?
All in favor.
Okay. Okay.
All in favor. I make a motion to do all in favor.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right. All in favor of Ms. Marini, Ansonia Housing Authority? Any opposed? Mrs. Marini is appointed.
Mr. President, I think Mr. Marini
Please
Can we
show
correct that
Mrs.
vote?
Marini abstained. I should say any abstention. Right. Yes, we have an abstention. Economic Development Commission, Bartholomew Flaherty, 28 Pinecrest Avenue, Ansonia, Connecticut.
Make that motion to accept the nomination.
And appoint?
And appoint.
Okay. We have a second. We have a second. I saw your hand. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried. Okay. We're going to go to resolution number 1. Okay. We will have a discussion on it and so on. Okay. I heard quite a bit of good information tonight. What I'd like to do before we do it, it has nothing to do with that particular resolution. What I'd like to do is pass to each person a copy of certain pages of Robert's Rules of Order. So if you will send them down that way and send them down this way, okay? So that all resolutions coming up, we follow the proper procedure. I only copied off a couple of pages. It's about motions. We follow them pretty well, okay? We do. A lot of people that are here have either been in some sort of a situation before the committees or on boards that follows Robert's Rules of Order. Some are a little bit looser or more lax than others. I'm not saying individuals, I'm saying boards and commissions. Some are more loose, some are everything. If you notice tonight, I have been trying to be very specific and not just saying we're accepting the name that's before us. We're saying we're appointing the person. That is legally what we're doing. Okay, if you'll turn to the first page, I'll just go over a couple of things very quickly. What I do is we'll try and we've already adopted Robert's Rules of Order. So we'll just take these, read them over the course of the month, everybody ingest how they work, and then we'll try to go forward from here. All it says is before any subject is open to debate, okay, 3 steps are necessary. The first is that a motion is defined, and it's defined in here. So a motion is made. The second is that it be seconded. This always says a member rises. We're not going to do that. The person says, I second the motion. Some action does not mean the seconder endorses the motion, but only that he wishes to have the motion considered. The third step is that the motion be stated. That is announced by the presiding officer. I always try to do that so you people understand what you're voting on. We took a vote on about 2 months ago, and while we were discussing it, we had a motion on the floor. The mayor asked if he could speak. He spoke. I got calls from people afterwards. They thought that what the mayor stated was part of our motion. It was not, okay? When he stated that this is what he would do or so. The motion is actually stated. I try and read off or remember and say to you, this is what you're voting on. So in the future, when we make a motion and second it, I'm going to try and remember what you moved to do so everybody understands what they're voting on. These are the 3 important steps. Okay? The last paragraph on that first page says, these steps do not prevent suggestions or alterations or anything else. And you notice while we did tonight, when people added other things to it, we asked the person who made the motion if he accepts the change to it or the amending, and the secondary person has to also do that. That's clearly what the first one, I can't say clearly, there is nothing clear about Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order is the most confusing book you will ever read. You know, I had my copy of it here tonight. I just ran off 3 pages of it to give it to you. The second one is debate. And it doesn't mean that people are on 2 different sides. The debate means a discussion of something. Like tonight, the way this actually should happen is when Mr. Marini has the resolution that he has there, a motion should be made to adopt that resolution or not. Or a motion could be made to table that resolution or not. And it should be seconded, and then the discussion starts from there. What we sometimes do is we do it backwards. We have our discussion no matter how long it goes, and then the motion is made. Okay? This says, when a motion is made and if necessary second, it must be stated by the chair, including that of the mover is permitted. When any member wishes to speak in debate, he must wait until no other member is speaking and address the chair. Almost every person tries to remember to do it here. We do a good job of it. The chair assigns the floor to the person that is granted recognition or recognizes him by name. The member who moved the adoption of the motion is first entitled to the floor. That's something that we will try and follow, even though another member has addressed the chair. Okay? No member may speak to the same motion more than twice in one day, no longer than 10 minutes at a time, without permission of the assembly. You can always ask again, can I add to it? But what it is someplace along in here it says on the last page, no member can speak the second time to a motion until every member choosing to speak is spoken. That's Robert's Rules, okay? And sometimes people got a little upset with the fact that saying I didn't call them, and I'm trying to give everyone a chance to speak to the same thing. And then we can have people speak again if necessary, this sort of thing. Just when you have something to add, just try and make a note and remember what it is. Okay, so that's just trying to, and that's under decorum. Gentlemen, we do, and lady, we do a good job of it, but sometimes I've had to remind and say to people, we just can't let it get away from each other. I noticed some military backgrounds showing up with, they address, you know, Mr. President, we all try and do it the same. We're just trying to make sure that everybody gets their own equal opportunity and their own right to speak. And I will not take anything to a vote as long as people still want to speak, meaning you have that chance to speak on your subject. So let's just take them home, look at them, and we'll try to follow them. Okay? Resolution number 1. Okay? Rainey, you have the floor.
Mr. President, and of course this is a motion to pass this resolution for further consideration to the Finance Committee and permission to open debate, Mr. President.
Wait a minute, you have it seconded.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to pass this on to the Finance Committee for further review after discussion. That's what is before it right now.
Okay, Mr. President, what we have before us is a tax incentive program, proposed tax incentive program for Ansonia. I think it's important to clarify a little bit about what this is, where it comes from, what it would do, and what flexibility we have to alter it. The state statute allows all municipalities to adopt tax incentive programs, essentially the ability to offer tax abatements in return from a promise of commitment from an investor. The commitment coming essentially in 2 forms. Number 1, money. And you'll see here the baseline is $25,000 up to several $1 million. And the other form of commitment is time, pledging that they're going to be in the city, investing that money for a period of, for minimum 2-3 years to up to 7 years or more. This essentially is something that state statute establishes the parameters for. And as municipalities, as cities, we have the choice whether to flick the switch on or not flick the switch on. Essentially, it empowers this board to offer tax abatements, and it sets forth a floor that you can't go below. But it allows a lot of discretion to cities in determining how much of an abatement they would like to offer. Without going into all of the particulars, which can be a little confusing, I will say that what we've put together here is by no means reinventing the wheel. A lot of municipalities have adopted these provisions, as far away as places like Hartford and Bridgeport, and as close by as places like Seymour. In terms of how this would conflict, if it would, with our economic development plan, I don't believe there's any stepping on toes. I don't believe there's any real conflict here at all with the master plan that we're putting together. The consultant has seen this proposed plan, and he's offered a small recommendation, but essentially he said that it looked good. That is simply because there really isn't that much flexibility with a plan like this. How it would work if we were to adopt it, the Board of Aldermen would essentially be the deciding authority to determine whether or not to offer an investor a tax abatement of a certain amount. This program does not require our board to do anything. It essentially gives us the parameters and gives us the discretion to do so. So, for example, if we pass this resolution, if we pass this program, people would submit ideas, requests for tax abatements, but we wouldn't have to give anything at all. Essentially, we could, for years, propose absolutely nothing in terms of a deal, of a tax abatement deal for any businesses. Or if we wanted to, we could offer them on any business that would fit into Ansonia and the economic base that we want to develop. How it would work in this plan is similar to how it works in other cities. There would be a board formed, and it's really up to us who it consists of. But most places it's the mayor, it's an element of planning and zoning and economic development, and it's an assessor. And these individuals will essentially be the people in the field that get the applications or that reach out to investors that we'd like to entice into the city. And they're the ones that actually start to put the deal together. For the approval, any deal would have to go to the Board of Aldermen to ultimately offer the exact deal. As you see, there's a chart in the resolution itself, and it basically breaks it down by cost of improvements, the term of years that the business is committing to, and under abatement, it shows essentially the floor, or essentially the maximum amount, up to 50% of an increased assessment, and the very top, 10 million, goes up to 100% of an increased assessment. This does not require us to offer those maximums at all. It essentially is saying you're allowed to use up to that amount of an abatement if we so chose to do so. Essentially, these are the maximum levels. They're cranked up to the maximum. Some towns don't. Some towns put them a little lower. But in the end, it's all discretionary. It does not tell us what to do. It's essentially allowing the Board of Aldermen to extend tax incentives. The purpose for this, obviously, we know that economic growth is important for our residents, for our businesses. We know that job creation is important for our residents. And we know that if we're going to compete with surrounding towns, we need to be very aggressive. We need to be proactive in our economic development. It's not enough just to hope that the right investor comes to town. We need to first of all, we want to solicit those investments. We'd like to go out to people who we think may be the right fit for our city, and be able to offer them a package, to be able to interest them in investing. And if anyone is looking at our city, of any of our properties, whether it be downtown, at Fountain Lake, at the Copper and Brass buildings, we want to be able to extend something to them, to tell them that Ansonia is right for them, and to also be able to offer them something that would entice them to bring their business to town. Within this proposal, it not only has what would be considered the boilerplate abatement incentives. There's also incentives for a business to come in and use the Ansonia residents or employees, and to use local Ansonia services for their support. In those situations, they're entitled to additional incentives if we so choose to extend them, such as waiving fees, putting in sewer hookups. But essentially, it all comes back to the fact that it's discretionary. The program doesn't mandate us to do anything in any situation. It's essentially a tool. It empowers us to basically cut deals, to extend incentives for businesses that we think, for investments that we think are right for our city. I know Chairman Flaherty was worried about a couple things. One of which was, well, what if we want to be more specific with what the plan is tailored to? If you take a look at this plan, it really does fit a lot of different types of possible investments and possible businesses. Everything from manufacturing use, to office use, talks about information technology, family entertainment, and restaurants. And I would posit that it needs to be broad. The plan needs to be broad as possible because essentially we don't know what the economy is going to bring us. We know what the situation is right now. We know what we want to target today, but we don't know how things are going to be in 3 years and 4 years and 5 years. And having that broad template built into this program does us no disservice. It essentially allows us more flexibility. And in terms of the discretionary aspect about it, you did this, you offered the tax incentive to one investor and another investor. That's completely true. That's the whole nature of the program. The board needs to use its discretionary power to decide who we're going to extend the program to and who we're not. And I think in any situation where discretion is involved, of course, people are upset that they're not the one that the deal was offered to. But I think those choices are important for us to make because economic development is going to mean choosing the direction for the city. And we want to be able to choose the right direction and not be forced into taking anything that comes our way. In terms of when this plan should be adopted, I would say the sooner the better, to be honest, because this is really something that is complementary to the ongoing plan of development. When we have our master plan together and we know exactly what businesses we want to go after, we need to have a plan like this in place as a tool to assist us in going after those businesses. There's no real fear of them stepping on each other's toes or working at cross purposes. Essentially, a strong tax incentive program like this will help us out no matter what plan we're running. It's broad enough so that it's going to empower us to get businesses no matter what our focus might be. So I'd like to take any questions right now that anyone's thought of if you've had a chance to read it over. But I do stress, this isn't something I'm looking for action on tonight in terms of approval. I'd like to forward this to the Finance Committee. That way we can take a look at this side by side compared to what other towns have done. Now, obviously, we could even call people, representatives from other towns, if their take on what works and what doesn't. But I will say, this isn't reinventing the wheel. This is tried and true formula other cities have adopted, but that Ansonia has not. We have that tax incentive corridor. Those are incentives that are offered by the state that overlaps a good portion of our main street and to where Farrell's and Copper and Grass are. This can work in tandem with that state-sponsored incentive program, and of course it works in areas where that economic enterprise zone does not work. Essentially, it puts more tools in our toolkit. It allows us to do more, empowers us to do more for the city. Open the floor to anybody else.
Mrs. Brady?
I have a question, Mr. Mooney. I was reading it through, and the only part that kind of confused me, and I believe Mr. Flaherty said something about it, where it talks about permanent residential use and transient residential use. What does that mean?
Essentially, it means if there's the construction of residences. If we were to see if an investor were to come in with a plan for residential use.
For building, you mean?
Exactly. Or improvements, or developments. Say, there was a project with upper scale condominiums on Main Street that was suggested. If the board were to take a look at that project and deem that that's something we wanted, it would give us the flexibility to entice an investor. At the same time, however, it allows us to choose manufacturers to come into the city. It allows us to reach out to a manufacturer and say, hey, instead of bring your business to a surrounding area, here's what a city we can offer you. Here's our own program for bringing your money in for a certain amount of years. You'll get X amount of your taxes abated. In addition to that, we'd be able to tell them, there's the enterprise corridor zone. On top of that, essentially it would allow us to do as much as possible to attract the right kind of businesses to town. But it's broad. It is broad. And I think it's important to be broad simply because, first of all, we don't want to seem like we're discriminating against anyone right off the bat. Let it be open to everybody because you don't know what the economy will bring us.
Thank you.
Comments? Questions? Mr. Tripp?
Mr. President, thank you. I think is what everybody wants for Ansonia is a thriving Main Street in downtown. And it's just the only question is how are we going to get there. I think this is an excellent start in the right direction. But as I said to an esteemed colleague and friend of mine here as we were discussing one night, I said, we need to do something. I mean, we're on the 20-yard line, we're in the mud, and we're in our own backed up against our end zone, and we need to do something to get down the field. So I think this is an excellent, you know, is this a 20-yard run around the right side, or is this a 40-yard pass in the middle? But one or the other, I think this is an excellent start in the right direction. So thank you for your time, Mr. President.
Yes?
Mr. President, just actually a two-part question. One, is it modeled in particular from a town or city that is using this? And two, is it successful in them using it?
Well, I can say elements of this are really taken from state statute. So I can say right off the bat that any town that adopts a tax incentive plan under the statutes that I referenced, which are 1265B and 1265H, essentially have this plan. There is some discretion when you adopt a plan, essentially how high you want your ceiling of tax abatements to go. I cranked them all the way up to the max. Where I could offer 100%, I put 100%. Where I could only go up to 75%, I made sure I went all the way up to 75%. What that actually means, without becoming very confusing, is essentially it gives us the discretion to go to that maximum amount. It doesn't require us to do anything. But more to your question, many, many other towns have adopted this. Essentially, the only difference I really saw taking a look at plan to plan was presentation, how they broke it down. The other thing I saw was not all of them offered the local incentives, what I call the Ansonia First incentives. Those are additional incentives I thought, I only found in a few of them, but I thought seemed to be really valuable and something we'd really like here. But this is certainly not sort of an in outer space type proposal. This is really tried and true. This is what the state allows us to do. And to follow up on what Alderman Tripp said, you know, we have a lot of potential in Ansonia. It's simply not realized, especially when it comes to the heart of our downtown. And a lot of times we take a look at things like copper and brass and sort of empty Faro buildings as obstacles to the city. But you never know what the future would bring with the right effort. You see places like Bridgeport with their Harvard Yard project that they worked for years and years and years on. You take a look at West Hartford, the Blueback Square project. They really turned a lot of vacant space into an entire new downtown for the area. And you never know if the proper approach was taken, if we're aggressive enough, the downtown could be a new center for manufacturing, for entertainment, for business. Essentially, the land that's now hosting vacant factories could give us the amount of space we need for an entire new downtown and a really an anchor into the heart of our city. But it's not going to happen obviously without private investment, figuring out that we are here and being interested and exciting us. And all I'm basically proposing is that we do what the state allows us to do, what the state gives us the power to do, that we flip that switch on and that we empower our board to be able to offer essentially a deal for the right investor.
Mr. Stowe. I recognize you, Mr. Stowe.
I just wanted to, I haven't gotten a chance to read the whole thing yet, but I have heard with a bunch of towns and cities and something that we will have to watch out for. And I don't know if you addressed it in here or not, like I said, I didn't have a chance to read it, but a lot of the times you will get people to move into your town just because you're offering them a tax abatement. And then 5 years, you're gonna end up with an empty storefront. So what you're gonna do is you may fill them for however many years you have slotted, but as soon as that tax abatement goes away, they're out, and you're gonna be back in the same boat. So I don't know if you have addressed that in here. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to read it. From what I understand, it was put in Thursday, and Monday was a holiday.
No, that's a good point. The whole system is modeled on the term of years that you have. So essentially, the whole idea is it's got to work for the city. That you're going to take a look at the amount of investment that's coming in, and you're going to take a look at how many years they're pledging. If they come up short, if they break their commitment, they lose all their incentives. They forfeit on the deal. What we want to do is make sure the investment makes sense. If someone's coming in, and part of their investment is rehabbing a building, doing environmental cleanup, we know that money's going to come in, we know it's going to come in for a certain amount of years, then it would maybe make sense. Maybe it makes sense to get a building that's uninhabitable, rehabbed. And even if they choose to leave at that point, 3 years or 5 years, the city has gained. And that's essentially what we would need to do for any business that we offered an incentive to. We'd have to assume the worst. We'd have to say, okay, they're coming in with $3 million, they're going to stay for 5 years. What makes sense? What kind of investment are they going to make? What's going to be the long-term impact in the city. And if it doesn't make sense, you gotta assume the worst, you gotta assume they may leave after 3 years. If it doesn't make sense, you just don't do it. Just when things are discretionary, obviously it opens up judgment calls on behalf of the board, on behalf of the city. But I think they're judgment calls that we're responsible enough to make. But essentially, yeah, the whole thing does factor in the idea that commitments are going to be for X amount of time, for X amount of dollars.
Alderman Stowe had his hand up before. Charlie, do you still wish the floor?
Yeah, I have a statement. This is a crucial puzzle piece in our economic development plan. I can agree with Mr. Flaherty, who spoke earlier. I don't see any harm in having this go another month. I think that the consultant should sign, Dick Schultz should sign off on this, so to speak, or if he has any added ideas, we should try to get them from him as soon as possible. I believe that the mayor should also do the same, and if he has any business people that he would like to advise him in between now and next month, I think would be a good idea. I have been in commercial development most all my life, and one thing I have noticed in many a decade is wind of change comes and you don't have a lot of time. You have like an 18-month window, and pretty quick, most of the development has been done, and there's some spurs here and there, but you know, the big fish get caught in the first 18 months. So I don't know what's going to happen, but this wouldn't hurt having in place before our report is done. You know, we've talked about having zoning fits, you know, for different businesses, for different parcels of property to make it easier for a business to pick that. But I mean, this is all going to take time with the tax incentives. I mean, I've watched Seymour do it. I've watched Southbury do it. I watched a big piece of land in East Haven about 20 years ago. I mean, it was developed unbelievable. It was like overnight. 2 years, it was done. And we don't have, as Bart says many times, we have a 6.6 square miles here, and all we need is 2 or 3 big fish, and we might be happy. You know, so I don't think we should let this drag on too long, but I think it might be a good idea to let it go for another month if Mr. Green would be so generous.
Well, that's what the motion on the floor is it?
Exactly.
Send it to the finance committee.
Exactly, Mr.
Because
President.
the table here, it's either send it to finance committee, you accept it and send it, or it's the table it. If you have to do either one, you can't do them both.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would say, you know, I think obviously everyone should have a chance to contribute to the plan. What I'd like to do at the finance committee is sort of show plans from other cities. Hopefully we can get someone to speak on behalf of someone who's had experience implementing a plan, see the pros and the cons. But I really tried to start us off sort of at first base with something that really tried to call what I saw as being the best for different cities. And it really is just a matter of, you know, we don't want to wait too long, because I sort of said the right sort of investment. You know, sometimes investment can come, but it's not exactly right for Ansonia. One thing the Alderman Raven brought up was sort of residences, the residential units. My personal belief is the last thing Ansonia needs is residential units before more productive business comes into town. Before whether it's manufacturing, whether it's family entertainment, whether it's, you know, it's at the productive hub that would fuel more residential units. That's what we really need. This plan would really allow us to go beyond, you know, maybe we've seen it many times, many buildings. Sometimes the most lucrative proposals are the ones to go for low-income housing. They tend to gobble up old buildings, destroy classic and culturally significant structures, all because that's the easy way to draw money in a bad economy. But I really do believe there's much more potential out there. There are a lot of uses for our buildings and for our downtown area that I think a lot of investors just don't know about. They don't know about it because we haven't made the effort to really reach out there and really market Ansonia as strong as we possibly can. And this tax incentive plan will allow us a powerful weapon to be able to go out there and bring them in.
Yes, Mr. Douglas.
John, I mean, Alderman Marini, I think the plan is actually pretty good. One of the things that concerns me is that are we providing investors an even playing field and a set of standards that they all can follow under? Your key word was discretion. You keep mentioning that, but that allows for a ton of ambiguity where there's no answers, uncertainty. And I think that might cause the opposite effect. You might have people unsure if Ansonia is playing above board, that we're not just having some partisan politics where some investors are allowed and some are not. So how would you address that in this plan?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's discretion. There's going to be sometimes an investment that we want in Ansonia, and some that maybe we're less favorable about. The whole thing about economic development is to steer us in the right direction. Now, that's where that master plan comes in place. Because when the consultant does complete his rounds, talking to all the boards, all the residents, we're going to get a certain sense of what the community really wants downtown, or what we want to pursue. We'll be able to use this as a vehicle, the plan as a vehicle to pursuing it. But in terms of, I mean, maybe hurt feelings, if someone wants to put low-income housing downtown, we're going to have to say, no, that's not the right fit for Ansonia. We want to pursue what we believe to be a higher and better use. Now, of course, has nothing to do with discrimination in zoning. Our zoning laws are what our zoning laws are. This essentially allows us, though, to go out to investors and try to encourage them to fill the space before someone else comes in. This discretion leaves a lot of loose ends in terms of what we can do. But we want that. We want all the flexibility we can to shape the...
Yeah, that's fair, but there still should be a set of standards so that everyone knows what the rules are going into it.
Zoning. I mean, zoning, the zoning...
Okay, guys,
boards
we're starting to
establish
just go back and forth. This sort of a discussion should actually happen at the committee level. This, honestly, this is just to basically get it out there. Is there anyone before Mr. Adamowski raises another question that hasn't spoken that wishes to speak? Mr. Adamowski.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we address the motion that's on the table.
I'd like you to hold off on that a minute. I haven't spoken. Okay.
After you speak.
Then I can ask if there's a motion in place. Okay. Because we already did have a motion, and we have to go back and remember what that was and see if we're going to, I know that. But a couple of things, my comments on it. I did hear comments out there that what would happen if people came in, got a tax incentive rebate, and then when their time was up, they left. We do have to investigate that closely. That did happen in Seymour when they built Silver Mine Park. Many places come in and got the 5 years, and after 5 years, just left. There still are 1 or 2 buildings that are empty up there. They've done a good job of building it, but we have to look forward to that. And in reading this also, my question would be, when I look at on the page that says, let's just throw it out, 10 million up to 100% of the increased assessment for up to 7 years. We have some buildings, American Brass and Pearls, that aren't worth anything. The property really, right now, as it says, the property is worth something, but the buildings really aren't worth anything. Someone to come in to make use of that property would have to be putting in $10 million. And they'd be putting it in on demolition, they'd be putting in to put something viable. So we're talking, then we would see no taxes for 7 years, you know, based upon this. We really have to look at that very, very carefully. This, when it says $7 million addition, or $10 million addition, that's nice. That's along the line that Target already has a building there. They're already paying taxes. And if they want to put another $10 million into it, we're very happy if they build a larger building and something. But we have to be very careful when the property isn't really worth anything. And we're going to be missing all the increased taxes. So I think that's something else that needs to be addressed in the committee, and we need to look at that carefully. Okay. Is that a motion?
No.
And you can't go on in a second time. I'm asking if anybody wishes that hasn't spoken. I was one of the few people that haven't spoken. Seeing that, yes, you have the floor.
If you've noticed, Shelton has done that quite a bit. I've owned a business for 38 years, and I've seen business Black & Decker left Shelton. They were there 10 years or whatever, and they took off. It does happen. I think it's going to happen in bigger places like Shelton. I'm hoping that if we get enough good people here that are really interested in building it, that we won't have that problem, that at least we'll get something. back from empty buildings that we have now.
Yeah, we would probably have to take a look at someone like Shelton. If the Bear property, Mr. Cinto went in and ended up building 4 towers or whatever it was. So it was really an increase. He put millions into that, an increase. And I don't think Shelton gave him 7 years of tax-free. You know, we don't know. Maybe they gave him, you know, I don't know, $1 million a year or something, but they certainly didn't give it all. We would have to find out places where it's successful, that have a thumbprint like we do. How would we, and maybe our consultant could help us enormously in that, in places.
And of course, Mr. President, since it's all discretionary, there would never be an instance where anyone was forced into using that maximum amount. Essentially, it's the Board of Aldermen. Basically, it's like you have that under the hood. You could go to that if need be, but it may be that we do never go to the maximum, simply because of what you're saying. It may never make sense. Then again, it may make, if someone's coming in with substantial development to a property that's worth 0, and you know that development will stay with the land, I think everyone would recognize that a developed property in those copper and brass lots and something that was contaminated and useless would be better no matter how long the tenant stays with that. But we don't have to use that maximum.
I think the finance committee also should be taking a look at maybe some of the cost-benefit analysis as to this, the short-term, long-term financial implications of something like this.
Okay, can we figure out what motion we have on the floor?
Alderman Marini moved to refer this to the finance committee for further review.
Okay, yes.
I would like to second that motion, please.
I think we could have a second. We had a motion and second, okay? So everybody heard what the motion is that we have in front of us. Are we ready to vote on that motion?
Yes.
I don't, can I speak?
Okay.
I don't really necessarily think the Board of Finance all by itself should have the ability to decide what goes on with this. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, other people, it's like the mayor, for example. You know, when you start talking about someone not paying any taxes for 7 years, you know, if you have a company that moves in here and they're gonna hire 500 people that live around here, you know, there's all kinds of different reasons that you give people incentives. And I'm not trying to talk down to the Board of Finance, but I tend to think this is a little bit bigger than just them. I think that Dick Schultz needs to have a say in this, and I believe that the mayor should have a say, you know. And if there's differences or things added to it that are all good, we should, like Bart said, take it all in one pie and try to make something out of it.
It would have to come out of committee to the full board anyway.
I would, my thought was if I was chairman of finance, I would have our economic development consultant come there. I would have possibly other people from towns where this has worked or not, and a lot of it needs to be discussed there, rather than the full board trying to put this document together. It needs to be done, and the mayor should be there, in our tax department, someone should be there, all of this sort of thing, it should be there, even if they have to have multiple meetings, it should be there, and then that board, as a committee, bring a recommendation of a document back here.
I don't see this being
open
handled in
session.
one meeting.
Yeah, that's where it should be.
Thank you
Okay.
for clearing that up.
Okay. Alderman.
As the finance committee chairman, I will make sure that those members are present when we have this meeting.
Okay. We have a motion in front of us. The motion is to refer it to the finance committee for discussion, for investigation, for further work, and bring in whatever people we need to make an informed decision on this and bring it back. Are you satisfied with that as your motion? Do we need a roll call? You might do this by voice vote. I need a motion then to make it a voice vote. Motion and a second to make this a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried. The motion by voice vote is to refer, as we stated, to committee. Okay? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. Okay. Resolution number 2 we have before us. is basically the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, America the Beautiful Legacy Trees. What they're going to do is, City of Ansonia has been awarded a grant to enhance the city with the Ansonia Tree Beautification Program through DEEP funding from its America the Beautiful Legacy Tree Program. Here's our motion. Resolved that Mayor James C. Delalope is empowered to execute and deliver in the name and on behalf of the City of Ansonia a certain contract with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection of the State of Connecticut for the fulfillment of the America the Beautiful grant is authorized to affix the corporate seal. That's our motion. Motion to accept and a second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Resolution number 3 is now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Aldermen of the City of Ansonia create the Ward Boundary Commission pursuant to Section 3A of the City Charter of the City of Ansonia. We put the people on it before, we actually didn't have a commission. So we do this. We are by creating the commission is decorated.
Make a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt. Alderman Tripp. And second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Okay, we have a couple items. Unfinished business, we decided, Attorney Robert Sousa asked that Michael Lehman's consideration be tabled. Okay. We had talked about the executive session, going into executive session for the car tax waivers with Attorney Teodosio, if he's still here, is he? Or not?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Mr. President, we didn't do business before that, or?
I'm sorry, I have new business. Is there any new business? Yes.
Yes, I have two things. Number one, I would like to address it with the mayor, but he was not here tonight. I don't know if Mr. Schreiber can update me. I want to thank him first for fixing the end of Kathy Lane, which was really deteriorated. And I didn't hear if you gave an answer before. That pothole from Regional Water Authority on Kathy Lane, it's getting deeper by the minute.
Yeah, we put in a call in, there's quite a few throughout the town from regional water. They assured me they were gonna be on it this week. I will put another call into them. There's one on Ford Street that's pretty bad, and also I believe there's one on Timmins that's pretty bad.
Yeah, if they could do it like yesterday, that would be good, because we're gonna start getting claims in here for people, with flat tires and every other thing. The second thing was an issue that had came up a couple times in the past 6 months around town, and it's something that we are going to have to address as a board. I got a couple of calls from some of the residents on Morningside Drive. There's a really big cat issue in this town. There are cats everywhere. They're claiming there's about 10 to 15 of them running around in the area of Morningside Drive. I know we've had this issue at least 3 or 4 other different parts of town where the cats are not owned by anybody, and they're just running rampant all over the place. I think we need to at least address this. I understand the Jeannie said that we can't displace these animals from their home. The only thing we're allowed to do is spay them or neuter them or whatever. I don't know that that's such a good answer for somebody that's got 15 cats living in their backyard. I'd be pretty upset. I just think as a board, we need to sit down and maybe get some legal advice or from somebody on what we can do with these animals.
I agree. What do you want to do with it?
I don't know, I don't have the answer. That's why I'm saying as a board, we need to sit down and get some legal advice on what we can do. I don't think an answer of saying, well, we gotta have 15 cats living in somebody's backyard is an acceptable answer to give to somebody. So that's my only suggestion, is that we find out what we can do and try to solve the problem before it gets worse.
Yes.
Have we asked our animal control officer?
Yeah, she's in a bind because she doesn't have anywhere to put them, and you can't just take these cats and dump them off somewhere. The state will not allow you to do that.
There's no policy for animals without
If I may, we've addressed this before, I think it was near the library or someplace.
There's 3 or 4 other places.
I realize that, it's in many places, you know, I'm aware of a couple of places. I think last time what Alderman Adamowski is saying is they actually trapped the cats, they put them in cages, they took them, we have a local veterinarian that, I don't know, they charge for neutering, spaying, all the things, but then the problem was, our animal control officer said they had to bring the cats back to where they found them. Because you can't just take, let's say, it's in your neighborhood, you have 20 cats, and she traps them, she neuters them, spays them, and then drives them up in front of somebody else's neighborhood. And lets all the cats out the back of the truck. They're still there. I don't know, we need to investigate. Chief?
If you don't mind, cats have the same legal status as dogs. So what we've done in the past is we've gotten grants. So there's a problem at the library, there's a problem on the west side. It's a spay, it's a catch, spay, neuter, and then release it. You're correct, you have to release it back to the area where it came from. The idea being it will not reproduce, you know, and so less cats producing kids. The problem you're talking about, somebody there is feeding those cats. Maybe not the neighbor, the house that they're at, but somebody there's feeding those cats. They stay where the food is. And so they won't, we see it all the time, when I leave food out, it's not my cat. So I'm not responsible for those 8 cats. I'll feed them, but they're feral. Well, not really. Now you're taking care of them. So it becomes a slippery slope. But you can't just take them and drive them to Oxford and then come back. You can't do that. So to catch them and then to have them spayed or neutered, there is a cost. Now, we've gotten a break from the vet in the past because we were a volume break. There's no guarantee you get that again. I don't even know if there's a grant out there for that now, and the process is going to take a bit. We struggle with the cat problem. As much as you hear it, we hear it from all over town. And again, it's a trap. We can travel them. We don't have a budget to spay or neuter them. When people don't want to hear, they can go back to their neighborhood, but they have to go back from where they were. You know, these are the rules that we didn't create those, but this is what we've dealt with in the past. We continue to deal with this. But it used to be, the rules were different. If there was an injured cat in the road, now if there's an injury, it has to be treated as if it were a dog. In the past, that wasn't always the case. So the legislature has even the playing field. So there is some irresponsibility on people who feed them or not take full control of the cats.
If I can just ask some question. In other words, there's nothing else other than just staying in order. The problem is the cats live for 20 years. So if you have, if you got 20 cats that live in your yard and you spay or neuter them, yeah, they're not going to have any more. They're there for 20 years. I'm just thinking,
I
I
can't speak to the longevity, but I think there are also agents, associations, or loose-knit groups that will come in and take them. And I'll speak with Jeannie again tomorrow on this. So once a month we're talking about cats somewhere. So, but if there isn't a group available to do that necessarily, then there are options that we have to.
And basically, well, maybe we have to put out to the people to stop eating.
Most, if I can, most of the rescue groups that deal with cats only want kittens. You know, most of them that do dogs, they will take because they can, dogs, they can find a family for it all. But for them to round up 20 cats and some of them are 8 years old or 6 years old or so forth. They're really rescue groups that come around and have them in cages that find homes for them and all. Really don't want adult cats, they want kittens. Yeah.
Is there room in our shelter? I don't know if it's permissible to do an adoption program to round them up essentially.
Our pound needs work as it is. And when I tell you you shouldn't put cats in the dog pound, you'll understand why. There are times when she has to farm dogs out to other pounds. So really kind of stuck there as well.
Can you speak to Jeannie, see if there's any other solutions, any ideas out there, anything that she has? Okay. All right, anything else under new business?
Our ice cream vendor?
No, we're gonna take that up.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. President, pursuant to a conversation you and I had on Saturday,
Yes.
for the benefit of the full board of Aldermen,
Yes.
as you and I discussed,
I was going to discuss that in the executive session. I thought, I don't know, or not. What's your thoughts?
no, as all I was looking for was a timeline.
Okay.
Is that confidential, what you were going to say to vote, or
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so.
you want to wait for executive session?
Probably.
Okay, well, I withdraw.
We think about that.
Your pleasure.
Chief, can I see you on the hall for a second, please? Excuse me. Thank you for your indulgence, open session. I'll let you talk.
Oh, okay, all right, no, just, Mr. President, thank you. Just for the benefit of the full board of Aldermen, as you and Finance Chairman Adamowski are aware, in the Finance Committee, we approved, the full board approved the purchase of the police vehicles, which Chief Hale has taken out and run with it, and is, hopefully very soon we'll have new vehicles. But also we discussed the new ambulance and the two new public works vehicles.
Yes.
And I've been asking around what's going on, and it just doesn't seem to be happening very quickly. And I just had some concern it'll be into winter next year before we start to see the other three vehicles. So is there any kind of timeline, deadline, drop dead date for the ambulance?
I actually thought you were discussing something else, and that's why I said.
Oh, okay, I
I
didn't
might
mean to
just find out from the chief of police that, no, that's as, we had several discussions at the Harvest Festival. It was not a committee meeting or anything else. Alderman Tripp, Alderman Adamowski and I had very good discussions standing out on Main Street. We were discussing the fact that our board had recommended that 2 dump trucks for public works be left in the budget, and that the money to purchase a new ambulance also be placed into the budget. And both did put money in the budget. They put in an amount of money to cover a 6-year note. And what that would be was they would purchase the 2 dump trucks and the ambulance on a note, and they put in enough of money that each year going forward, that would pay the note. So at the end of 6 years, the dump trucks and the ambulance would be paid off. The dump trucks would be bought off the state bid list, just like we purchased 2 police cars tonight, we would purchase 2 dump trucks the same way. So we already know what the prices are up there, just like the price of the police vehicles are posted, we know. But the dump trucks, they're standard dump trucks. That we could buy, the same as the state purchase. The ambulance had to be, bid specs had to be drawn up. It was delayed because the company that purchased the last ambulance for no longer is supplying ambulances. They had to find another supplier that met the needs of the city of Ansonia.